Hi, this is Pendo. Welcome to Millionaire Babe. Today I have with me Grace Navasavala. She is a real estate agent from here in the US. Grace, can you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much, Upendo, for having me. I'm excited to be visiting you on your channel. I'm Grace Navsavala, for those of you who don't know me yet, and I'm a realtor in Louisiana. However, I'm also a nurse, inactive at the moment, but I am licensed.
Okay. So what made you decide to do real estate?
That's a good question. Real estate actually chose me. I say real estate chose me because growing up, all the people in my background, my family, they own real estate back home. So I grew up looking at them, dealing with tenants and all the things that come with that, not paying rent, the management. And I did not see myself as a landlord at all until one dreadful day when I got that phone call that we had been evicted. So can you imagine paying rent for 7 years, never miss a payment? We were never late. We were what you would call the ideal tenant. We didn't even have any holes in the wall. That's how serious we were and particulars we were about being diligent with respecting other people's properties. However, when we found out that we had been evicted, something that we did not have any control over because the landlord chose to not pay his mortgage. And I say chose because we didn't know anything about it until afterwards. And I remember prior to that, actually, if I back up that story, on the 1st of August 2013, I remember that day clearly because we had an invited guest, right? Somebody in the corner of the room of our back door somewhere, whereby I was sitting in the living area with my two kids and on the computer. I'm always looking up some information, trying to educate myself. So I'm looking up information, talking to my kids, just listening to the kids outside. And all of a sudden, I hear silence. And I was like, that was new. These kids are always making a lot of noise. And then I was like, oh, thankfully, somebody's kids stop making all that noise. And so I looked at the back door. Guess what I saw?
What?
That unwelcomed guest. Something rolled up by a back door, black. Thankfully, we had a front door on the opposite of the room. I picked up my kids, ran outside, and never looked back. I told myself maybe this is the sign because beginning with that year 2013, me and my kids stayed praying for God to help us to find a home. And I didn't know that that was the answer to our prayer because that day when I left to go to visit friends, to flee that experience from my home or my apartment at the moment, I kept saying in the car, you know what, God, make it impossible for us to stay. This is a sign you wanted us to learn from to get a home. And soon enough, 5 days later, got it that way. 5 days later, that's when we got the eviction. And at first, I told my husband, I was like, stop playing. You just want me to be happy because I'd asked and asked and asked. And most of us women, especially if you have a partner, you're always waiting for your partner to buy into your idea. You want to do things together, right? So that was me. I was always waiting. I was always excited. We have to do it together. That's how it's supposed to be. I thought. However, it wasn't like that. And I gave up waiting and I stayed praying about it. And God answered, and the landlord didn't do what they were supposed to do. And that was the answer to our prayer. And 90 days after that, we were able to get into our first home. And through that, that motivation to always own real estate and also help other people never had to deal with the circumstances I had to deal with became a factor for me to start my business. And when I went on a vacation where it was a crazy vacation, we drive to Miami on a cruise. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out there, live my best life. It's my last summer before I become a nurse. But I was doing all that on credit. So I get there, I get a notification on my phone that my account was delinquent.
Oh,
Literally about to board on the cruise ship, and you get that notification. That experience told me, Grace, you have to do better. As soon as I came home, the whole time I was on vacation, I was like, I'm going to Jamaica, I'm going to this, but I'm coming home. I had already mapped out exactly what I needed to do. I knew I was going to do real estate. I knew the name of the business because I have the pleasure of people naming their kids after me. Thank the Lord. So I'm very blessed. I've had 3 people name their kids after me. One is named Navasavala, after my last name. 2 I named, one is Kisa, and then the other one is Grace. So that's amazing. And Kisa is actually means grace in Luganda. But that's how my whole business started. And as soon as we came back from that vacation, I was literally on the computer starting my business. And that's how we started.
okay. So according to Ron Cooper, he's the president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, says that home ownership is the #1 way that African Americans can get into wealth. What are the benefits of being a homeowner?
There are so many benefits of home ownership. Oh, goodness, where do I start? There's an acronym I like, it's called IDEAL, and I'll add an extra E at the end. So this IDEAL says, I is for income. As a real estate owner, I get to get income for my real estate. The second thing is the D, the depreciation. So any asset which is a fixed asset, especially real estate, you can depreciate it. And that's for tax purposes. I'm not a CPA. Let me share that disclaimer, but you can depreciate that asset. For residential real estate, it can actually be depreciated 27.5 years. And yet if you have commercial, it's 39 years. That's awesome. And the E is equity. The more you own that asset, you're building equity over time. Who would want that equity in their home? Because if you rent, you don't get any money back when you rent. But if you ever decide to sell that home, that's like a saving you've been putting in your account in your home, which is powerful. And then the A is appreciation. I always emphasize location, 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 location. Location is everything. Because when you buy in the right neighborhood, the right location, and it doesn't have to be up and coming right now, you can start looking at what's going on in that area. You see, when you start seeing traction, you start seeing probably you see Whole Foods, you see all these more people moving into an area, that's going to be people looking for housing. So if you start purchasing in neighborhoods like that, you're preparing yourself for the long run, because very soon that neighborhood will appreciate. And that's appreciation. And the L is the leverage. I love leverage. I did not know that you could actually leverage real estate, because in my mind, it took me so long to purchase a home because I always thought that you had to have 100% of all the money that they needed for a home. Say, for example, if the home was worth 100,000 and they were looking for 100,000 for it, that you had to have $100,000 at the same time. That's not the case. I tell people all the time, leverage the power of real estate. They might not give you that $100,000 if you want to start a business, but this is money the banks are giving you at 3.5% down. That is if you use an FHA loan. And if you use a VA, especially for veterans, or RD, rural development loans, that's 0% down. Therefore, I tell people all the time, there is so much power we can leverage by utilizing real estate. And if most of us do, especially with that study, they are accurate in that real estate, if you leverage it and you actually capitalize on it, you can build a lot of wealth. And the last E is economic empowerment. There's a big wealth gap because a lot of us, especially minorities, do not own homes,
Yes.
which is unfortunate.
Yes, you're right. So according to the Census Bureau, say that in 2020, about 65.5% of people in the US became homeowners. So among those 65.5%, we're looking at about 2.6 million households became homeowners in 2020. So that was a good year.
It
But
was.
when you look at the percentage of Black ownership, it's still really low. Right now,
Unfortunately.
we're looking at about 43.4% of all people as Black Americans. So some of the challenges that Black Americans have in owning property, for example, we have student loans. On
Yes.
average, we're looking at about 45,000 in student loan debt for about every student. Housing affordability, interest rates right now are really high, the 3%, right now we're talking about 7.65%.
True.
Depending on your credit and low inventory. We don't have so many people selling as previously. And the other thing too is income. Based on the interest rate right now, you need to make at least $100,000 to be able to afford housing. There are some other challenges too. I mean, many Black Americans are scared. They don't even apply for.
Yeah.
I think you see that as a real estate agent. They don't even apply.
Yes.
They don't get the pre-approval to get that home loan. And then also there's a history of segregation in mortgage industry. There've been a history of predatory lending practices.
True.
So they still have a lot to heal with the trauma from the 70s, the 50s, and all that. And then the other thing too, most Black Americans, we make less income, we have less credit, and we have less education. So we're starting from the back.
Yes.
There's so many challenges though to home ownership. But I mean, I'll still advocate for people to get into homes if they can. So
I agree.
how long have you been in operation with Kisa Homes?
I've been in operation with Kisa Homes for 5 years. But before that, I want to say I do agree about that. That homeownership can be a challenge, especially for minorities, because like with all the reasons you mentioned, right? However, if we leverage it and also let go of the misinformation, because so much is of the fear is because of all the misinformation. People understand one thing, maybe the media is pushing this narrative and they are just thinking about that. But if you stop listening to all those naysayers and focus on your goals and get rid of that fear, because I always share my stories because I know if I could do it, I know somebody else could do it. I didn't even know anything about credit when I got here. You see, I wasn't born in the US. I didn't have any clue about credit. I remember my cousin had called me 2 years after I was in America, and he had asked me, Grace, what is your credit score? Out of the blue, I said, what do you mean, credit? I don't need credit. I'm good. I can pay whatever I want. I pay with cash. He said, Grace, you're not in Uganda. You're in America. I need you to go learn about credit. You're a student. That's the least you can do. What do you do on the weekends? I did my homework. I signed up for Credit Karma. I started doing my homework. And now I'm assisting people who are willing to learn, because you have to want to learn. Nobody's going to give you anything if you're not willing to give it to yourself. I might want it for you, but you have to want it. So a lot of hindrance is also us not wanting it. Because if you want it, people can stop you so long. You see, they can't stop you forever. So that needs to change. Our mindset needs to change about how can we help ourselves instead of waiting for people to help us, because no one is our savior, right?
Yeah.
So, but enough about that. My business, I've been in business for 5 years now, about to be 6 years. And Like I mentioned, my passion for real estate, I love to help people, and I figured, why not help people with housing? This is a big thing. We all need housing, you see, because I always remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Housing is a primary need, it's essential. Whereby, if you don't own your own home, you're paying so much every month, because there are three expenses mainly that we normally pay for. It's going to be housing, transportation, and food. So if you're paying all that out and you don't have anything that's coming in for you to take care of you, you see, you're always going to be in a deficit. And then you can do that for so long. But if you want to build wealth, you have to leverage those things. How can I save on housing? How can I save on food? How can I save? Because if you're just spending on those areas, you can never grow enough wealth. But
Yes.
yeah, Kisa Homes, we are here. We love to educate. We have residential real estate where we rent it out to people, and we collect rent, and hopefully we service our clients to the best of our ability, because that's the mission for Kisa Homes, to serve.
Excellent, excellent. So
Mhm.
how does one become a real estate agent?
Oh, that's a good one. Initially, you have to actually take some classes. You take the 90-hour pre-licensing course. I took the Pro Educate. You can take online or in person. I took one online because it was for my own convenience. I was a traveling nurse at the time. And when I did the Pro Educate, it was a self-paced class. However, it was a challenge being consistent. Therefore, I had to set a set schedule to start studying every day to make a consistent schedule and pass the exams. And as soon as I was able to pass the exam for the Pro Educate, because you have an exam at the end of the course, as soon as I passed that exam, I filed that application with the Louisiana Real Estate Commission. And they gave me permission to test for the state as well as the national exams. And when I was able to set those a date to test for those exams, I passed on the first try. Thank you, Lord, because it's really hard. Especially it has a few terms which can be challenging for so many people. But I'd been in real estate for 4.5 years at the time. Therefore, I knew some of the terms. I just needed to get it just as soon as possible to pass. And I was able to pass on my very first try. And after that, that's the easiest part, because the biggest part is actually when you start as a licensee, getting to a brokerage, finding clients, negotiations. Is so many things you have to learn when you start. Yes.
Okay, so there are different forms of being in real estate. For example, I can be a passive investor. I can invest in funds. I can invest in REITs. I can be an active investor where I oversee X amount of properties that I have and be involved in the day-to-day management of those properties. So, and also I can be a real estate professional. Can you tell me a bit more? How does one get the real estate professional, and what are some of the tax benefits of doing that?
Being a real estate profession, to my understanding, per my CPA, it comes to how many hours you're dedicating to that business physically. And he mentioned that about 750 hours a year, which is normally part-time, but they want to make sure that your daily activities are towards that business. And it helps with tax benefits too, because instead of you being taxed 35%, you get taxed less than that, 15%. That's the quickest way I can say about, yeah, being a real estate professional. However, you also have to consider, if you're making a lot more money working your 9 to 5, you see, and then the real estate, you don't have to be a real estate professional per se, because you're still getting all these other benefits from just being a real estate investor.
Yeah, so you're saying you have to weigh the odds.
Yes, Exactly.
Okay. And what were some of the challenges that you faced when you became a real estate agent?
Ooh, that's a lot. A few challenges. A few challenges, mainly people don't understand the amount of time and sacrifice real estate agents give up. Lately, when you start a transaction, you don't know how long that transaction might take. And then sometimes during that process, people get to change their mind, which has happened more often than not, I hate to say. But, and then when sometimes people change their mind, they don't even tell you, whereby you're sending them all these houses for months, and then finally, you're like, I keep sending you all these houses. What's going on? It's like, oh, I've been changed my mind. And I'm like, I wish you could just shoot me a text, give me a call, let me know, such that we're on the same page. Because I've been wasting time communicating with lenders, communicating here, making sure that we get this transaction at the closing table. Therefore, that commitment has been a little challenging for some people, and I'm hoping we can do better. A lot of fear. I keep encouraging people. Fear, you have to overcome fear by conquering that fear head on. Nobody can conquer that fear for you. If you've never done something, everything can be fearful for the first time. However, the more you do it, case in point, when I stay in my very first house, like I share my story about, from I didn't know anything about credit. Guess how much fear I had getting evicted, and now thinking I need to start this home purchase process. I was afraid, but I prayed about it. I was like, God, you want me to do this? I know you can help me through this. And that's all I held on to. Nowadays, I just need to know the numbers. I'm like, okay, we're doing this and this and this. Okay, sure. Send that. Sometimes when the last transaction, the realtor was like, are you sure? Because you didn't really look at it. And I was like, I'll see what I already wanted to see. I don't have to take a whole day to look over it. It's just numbers. So the more you do the same thing, it gets easier, right? But if you've never done it before, it's always going to be hard and fearful.
What
Yeah,
what
so
else
that's a big thing.
what else would you advise other people so they can overcome some of these challenges of investing in real estate, I mean?
Just being open minded, because if you're not open minded, being positive, willing to learn, that's a big thing. Because I had to open my mind. Initially, I was very closed off. I know what I know. I don't need to know anything. No, I had to humble myself, know that other people know much better than me, and start listening to them. If they're doing something, I'm following. Okay, I'm like, thank you so much for your time. What are you doing? Can I please learn from you? Learning, self educating myself, looking information up on YouTube, Facebook, doing my own homework, because we can do so much to help you, but you have to want to help yourself. So just being proactive. I love the saying of being proactive, because you have to be proactive in your self development, in your personal career, in your growth, in everything you do. You have to want it more than other people want it for you, because that's how you succeed. So, anybody out there who wants to get into real estate, please come on. We have enough for all of us. And another thing I learned about real estate, you do not have to always work so hard, because we have this mindset of always working hard work, especially coming from Africa. I remember going in the gardens. My parents are farmers, so my dad, holidays, digging. I always saw myself, this is not the life. This is not going to be my life, because I didn't want the hard work. And real estate is a perfect example of it's not that hard work, because you can leverage the power of other people. Today, case in point, I had a plumbing issue at one of the houses. All I had to do, call a plumber, send him the money after he did the work. That's done. Moving on to the next thing. You see, utilizing other people. I don't have to even see it. You see, because he was like, do you have to come see the work? I was like, even if I see it, I won't know what you did. I'm not a plumber. So I'm going to have to trust the people I hire. And of course, weeding out the wrong contractors. You have to go through a lot of people, but when you find the right one, stick with them. Yeah, it will help you in the long run.
Okay, so you're saying you have to build a team of people
Exactly,
that you
exactly.
can
You can't
rely.
do everything by yourself. We are not mountains. We can't do it all by ourselves. You can do that for so long, but when you want to go, you remember that saying, when you want to go fast, you can go alone. But to go far, you have to go with others. That's been very touching for me, especially sometimes it's hard to have the right team and partners, but it takes time. And I'm still working on it, still building, trying to find the right people on my team. Sometimes people come around, you think they're going to be one thing, they turn out something else. You change direction, you find other people, you give other people a chance, and the right people will always come.
Good things take time.
Exactly.
Yes. So one of the good things about being in real estate is that, for example, you may be able to have assets. So these
Mhm.
assets, you're able to pass them down to your children, your grandchildren. Could you talk a bit more about that?
Yes, I love real estate because of the power of generational wealth building. My goal is to actually start a trust and put together trust for my estate such that when I pass, say for example, something happens to me, anything can happen to us at any time. Anything happens to me. Instead of my kids trying to figure out what are we supposed to do here, what are we doing this, I already have that already situated. And then they don't even have to pay tax on anything in that trust because everything in that trust, you see, it's like those taxes are already paid such that they're not paying probate because that's a big thing. I have clients right now. They've been dealing with a property their parents died and left for them, and now they have to go through all this litigation and paying a lot of money, and also it's taking a lot of time. And I keep encouraging people, if you think about how can you start a trust, and of course, talk to your tax attorney because I'm not a tax attorney, and they will probably better guide you. I have to talk to my tax attorney too. So that's the ones who are helping me structure my trust. But that will definitely help us having life insurance. You see, such that when I have term life right now. When I had it, I think I just become a nurse and I was excited. I was like, you know what? The best thing I can do for my kids is have insurance. And I did. I can always increase it such that since I have more properties now, I can have a higher amount such that if I pass on, that insurance can pay off those properties and my kids won't have any debt on those properties. You see? So it's so many things we can do, especially building generational wealth. That's a big thing. And real estate can definitely do that. Because I always think about the Rockefellers. They're still wealthy because they had all those things established in their foundations. And we can do the same.
Yeah, but like you said, we have to be proactive. So we have to start.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I found out recently that you were in Bogema.
Yes, I was in Bogema in A level. So
Mhm.
my last year, 2 years of high school, that's when I went to Bogema.
How
Yes.
was it?
It was interesting. I loved Bogema. Okay, so just imagine coming from a slum in Katwe, and I always sitting outside, just dreaming one day, I don't like to be here. I want to go in the city, live in the city, somewhere else. And Bogema was like a city for me because when I walked into that compound the very first day, I remember I actually in the dorm, I cried. I told my mom, I love it here. Can you imagine saying you love it at school? If my mom, she says the story, I cried. When I went to my room, I was like, oh my God, I love it here. You see? And through that, and that's why I'm also passionate about real estate. Sometimes I do more than most because sometimes investors might put just quick fixes and whatnot, but I always try to put a lot of work and passion to make sure that when that child, that family, whoever walks into that house, they're like, I want it here. I love to stay here. You see? And that's why I get that from Bogema because of how they did a good job with the dormitories, with the classrooms, and I always wanted to be there. And that's yeah, that's my memory of Bogema. I can't wait to go visit one of these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Bogema for elementary and also my high school, O levels. So
Wow, we just missed each other because as soon as you was finishing, I was coming in.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, Bogema is my foundation too. So I understand.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
anyway, in ending, if you could go back again,
mhm.
10 years, let's say,
Yes.
what would you have done differently as per real estate?
As per real estate, I would say I would have started right away. I waited 10 years before I started my business. And 10 years for whatever reason, because I always told myself, oh, I'll wait until my partner can understand what we are doing, until they can get on board. I'll wait until I have enough money. I'll wait until I have enough knowledge. I'll wait until I have this, until I have that, until I can do that. Until when that ordeal day, when that thing hit me, and I was like, Grace, you've been wasting time and money. You can never do all that and still grow and you see and grow wealth and become successful. So that was a big challenge. And when I went back to Uganda, I remember my mentor also saying that you'll never be nothing if you don't own. You see, home ownership. Whatever you do, business ownership, everything you do, own. Ownership is power. And that also reminded me how I was evicted. And I was like, oh, that because we got evicted because the landlord always had power. So when you don't own, you don't have nothing. And then you keep waiting, wasting time, thinking everything's going to work itself out. You have to stop wasting time. And I tell my clients now, they ask me all the time, what would you do if your client or your spouse isn't supporting? You know what I tell them? I tell
What?
them, you support yourself. You don't need your spouse to buy into your idea. Your idea was yours for you. God gave it to you. God did not give it to your spouse. Because sometimes we are putting our responsibilities on other people. That's your goal. That's your dream. You see, that's your desire. That's not your spouse's. You see, that was a hard pill to swallow because it takes acknowledging and being understanding, like, you know what? This is my responsibility. I had to take care of my own business. But because we try to shy away from our own responsibilities, then we're blaming other people, holding other people accountable, but we have to hold ourselves accountable. And so that's pretty much the biggest thing. Start where you are with what you have. You see, you will learn as you go. But stop wasting time because time is very precious. We don't have a lot of time. We have money and we can always get more money. We can never get more time.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So in ending, what are some of your social media handles and where can people find you?
On YouTube, please subscribe to your girl's channel. I educate about real estate and health and wellness. And my handle for YouTube is Wealth and Wellness with Grace. And that's Wealth and Wellness with Grace. On YouTube, it's Grace Navas. Oh, on Facebook, sorry, it's Grace Navasavala, my full name. On Instagram, it's Grace Navasavala, no space in the middle. But yeah. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming. It's
Oh,
been a
thank you.
pleasure
It's been a
hosting you.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and hopefully we could do another part two. I'd like to go further in detail about the benefits of home ownership and how we can encourage, especially Black Americans and minorities like us, to be more involved in real estate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very true. Because sometimes we don't know and we don't know what we don't know. So we just have to figure out what is that we don't know and bridge that gap. So I do home education classes. the home buyer seminars every 3 months. That's a big thing. But yeah, I'm excited to come back. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Until next time.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
this has been Millionaire Babe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.